Hello. I am attempting for the second time to figure this out, how to stream and be able to get myself on to the studio. So I'm only testing. We're gonna watch, I believe this is day 24 of Karen Reed Retrial. As I said before, in some of the comments that I made on other YouTube channels and other places, I believe from what I'm watching, which is so different than majority of the people believe, that Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor in the second trial, is a genius from an acting perspective. I'm an acting teacher and I'm watching these people as if they were characters. Who do I believe? Who do I not believe? Which is the most powerful in presentation, which is less powerful? So let's go. I don't know how to stop those sounds. Let's go through this to see if it's going to work. I'm going to probably, I think I went through Ellen Jackson yesterday. Yeah, I did a little bit of this. I'm trying to figure out how to do two monitors at the same time. My brain does not function that way at all. Still Ellen Jackson. Where is... Did I upload the wrong video? I wish I had somebody. Oh, there he is. I think this is it.
In a light most favorable to the Commonwealth, the first issue the court should look to is intoxication. A reasonable fact finder would find that the defendant was in fact intoxicated. Based on the serum conversion and based on Karen Reed's statements herself, you've heard many, many admissions by the defendant about her level of intoxication, which far surpassed the statutory mandate that she...
I think what is happening in the second trial in comparison to the first trial is the mistake, in my opinion, that Karen Reed was allowed to do all those interviews and the documentary, A Body in the Snow. I think they were so sure of themselves after getting a mistrial the first time around. They were filming during the first trial. I believe they were filming during the first trial, the documentaries and the interviews that she had done, that Karen Reed had done, which I don't understand why they would have allowed her to do that. But I think it was because they were so sure. If you remember the first trial, they had the prosecutor, Lally. I forget his first name. And he wasn't a presenter. He wasn't a storyteller. Remember, I'm doing this from an acting perspective. I'm an acting teacher, an acting coach. So it was as if watching an actor on stage who is not a strong actor. There are great actors, such as Bradley Cooper. For some reason, Hank Brennan reminds me of the character that Bradley Cooper portrayed in one of his movies, and I don't remember the name. It was a period film, so he was dressed with the 3 pieces men's suit, the same way that Hank Brennan is. There's a difference between great actors who can portray characters who are believable. We as the audience watch and we believe them. We feel everything that they're feeling. There's a saying in acting, Great actors believe themselves, and great actors, I don't know how to stop these sounds. Great actors believe themselves. Bad actors try to make the audience believe. I think that's so relevant to a trial. When you think about a trial, is very much like a theatrical experience. I believe the jurors, if you look at them as if they were the audience members who then have to make a decision about someone's life, which is a pretty huge responsibility. But I think the way they are influenced in what the verdict is going to be has so much to do, first of all, with the facts of the case. But then they are still human beings, so they are going to watch and be moved by what the lawyers and how the lawyers are going to present the case. And I just, again, from an acting perspective, look at this man and I believe him. I watch Ellen Jackson, I watch Yanetti, I watch Alessi, who's the third lawyer, defense lawyer, who came on this second trial. He wasn't in the first one. And I feel that during the presentation of the Commonwealth's case, the defense lawyers were not as strong, were not as commanding of the courtroom as they were in the first. I feel like they were just surprised now by this new person, new attorney, who, in my opinion, is really, really good. He's confident. He has a linear story that he is telling. He's not leaving any other parts in between that linear story, which could be confusing to the jurors. He's making the case, he's telling the story of what happened in a very linear and very concrete way. Even the way that he gets up, the way that he just walked up to the microphone, and it's as if you're watching a person do public speaking. Some who are good at doing that will engage you as the audience, and some who are not, due to their posture, due to their voice, due to their belief. Going back to what I was saying about great actors believe themselves, mediocre actors try to make the audience believe. He believes, in my opinion, in his side of the story because he has the facts that the story can be grounded on, supported by. And especially the defendant, Karen Reed, helped his case this time around because she, going back to what I began, to what I said, she talked everywhere. She gave interviews. She contradicted herself. She came out as a character who doesn't really have any emotional connection to what happened. And I understand some of her supporters are saying that it's been a long time since this happened and she's fighting for her life and she's going through a lot of stress. And I understand. Oh my God, I would not want to be in that situation. I don't wish anybody to be in that situation. But still, when some of the pictures from the autopsy, when some of the pictures and some of the voice messages that she left, or even her interviews, clips of her interviews were being shown in court, there was no connection from her watching and listening to those. There was no connection. There was not one moment that triggered some sentiment in the way that I was watching and seeing her behave in court. But I will say this trial, in comparison to the first one, she's not as animated. I don't feel that she feels as sure, the same way that I don't feel the defense team feels as sure as they did before they had Hank Brennan to deal with. So it's ultimately going to be left to the jurors. We can only comment and we can only give our observations. I just find it so. I just find it so. Ugh. I tell my students in acting classes not to go uh, to try to kind of be conscious of that, and instead of going just pause. It's okay to pause without making the sound. The reason why we make the sound is because we feel that we are having to talk, and we don't want to leave the audience, or we don't want to leave people waiting for us during the pause. That's such a human habitual way of talking. I see a lot of people doing the same thing, so I have to catch myself when I do it. But I just feel that she damaged her case. I mean, their theory of what happened is just so out of this world. It really is. And even in acting, like I said in my first episode that I did, my first stream yesterday that didn't work, even if I take a scenario like that to my acting class and try to do it with my acting students, it would be very hard for them to engage in it, because even for actors, portraying a fictional story, they have to base it in the truth of their life experiences, of their life understandings. You still have to base it in truth. If it's not based in truth, it comes out as not credible. So I feel that Hank Brennan believes in his case. That's what I feel. I love that he walks from where they're sitting in the courtroom, the prosecution, their desk is in front of the defense. So they have their back to the defense. When he gets up from his table to go to the microphone, he turns, walks, doesn't even look at the defense table. And I would probably do the same thing if I were on stage. I wouldn't look at the defense, who in this segment, when he's up at the microphone and presenting his case, they become the audience. I wouldn't want to make eye contact. I wouldn't want to look at the audience, because I would want to concentrate on what I'm about to do and how I am about to present my case if I were a lawyer, acting as a lawyer.
She consumed alcohol in a way that would affect her ability to operate safely. Those are just two of the cornerstone pieces of intoxication, which are clear, light most favorable to the Commonwealth, a reasonable fact finder could find beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence of collision is abundant. I do not want to go through an entire closing argument or rhetoric, but suffice to say there are taillight fragments from the defendant's own Lexus, from her shattered right taillight, that are found in Mr. O'Keefe's clothes.
How did those English again? Now I'm trying to be as correct when I speak. Ooh. How did those taillights end up on Officer O'Keefe's clothing? How? Proctor and his buddies from the police gathered them. They went, they broke the taillight after they took Karen Reed's Lexus SUV. They broke the taillight, or what was left of it, and then they decided to go and frame her by sprinkling pieces of taillight around Officer John O'Keefe's, in the place where Karen Reed dropped them off when she left, deciding she doesn't want to go into the party of 34 Fairview. How do you do that? What about his shoe that was found very close to the road, around the same place where he was found? What about his cap that was found under the snow, under the ice? How did they, after a night of drinking at a bar where they were all at, in their drunkenness, they were able to come together to conspire to frame a professor, the defendant? That requires so much work and so much precision, and still doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to do it. Would they risk everything if they were to be found out? If they did frame her, would they risk everything? So many people would risk everything because they wanted to frame Karen Reed. That makes no sense. That scenario is so fictional that even in a movie, it would have to be done so precisely. And that framing would have to be done with so much skill and precision and coming together of all these people who are conspiring on the same side against the defendant. I mean, and they were all drunk, but they were able to think clearly, to put all these pieces together, to sprinkle tail lights pieces all over. I just don't understand.
O'Keefe is left at the very spot where she expects to find him, according to her statements, where her car does a backing maneuver at least 24 miles per hour. He is left with injuries on his arm consistent with the damage to her Lexus right rear taillight.
That says it all. There was that segment of what he just said says it all. I mean, my God, if Karen Reed was not the defendant, if you would have heard this and you would be able to detach yourselves from the support and the passion that you have for this defendant, which blows my mind because I don't understand why. Usually in acting, when you see a character such as Karen Reed who doesn't show any kind of emotional reaction to anything, at least from what I've seen her, from all the things that she's done, and even in court, why would the audience be so attached to that character? In movies, you would not be attached to such a character because you would want that human being to behave as a human being, not as a robot. And I understand she's trying to keep distance. She's trying to work on her case. She's very much part of her defense. She's a smart woman. But she left John O'Keefe in front of the police officer's house where the other colleagues, police officers, were with their wives and children and people coming and going. Got upset after Jen McCabe was trying to help them get to the house. And in one of the texts, she mentioned, in trying to help them get to the location, that the house is very close to one of the ex-girlfriends of John O'Keefe. And I believe that that's when Karen Reed snapped. She could not hear the fact that, which she knew because he never cheated on her. She, on the other hand, cheated on him. But she heard John O'Keefe had a fling with this woman, Bella's mother or whoever that was. And so she decides she's not going to go into the house, into the party where she was going to go into. And then I also believe that because she was cheating emotionally, texting with Higgins, knowing that Higgins was at the party, she started to get a little bit uncomfortable. What happens if I go into the house now with John O'Keefe? What is going to happen? She started to feel uncomfortable, as she should have. I would have felt the same way if I did the same actions that she did. So she decides she doesn't want to go. She admits they had a fight in the car. I'm dropping you off. She drops him off. And then she decides to leave. But why does she leave to go back to his house? if she was so upset and she decided not to go into the party? Why not go to her house? Because if you remember that whole day before they ended up meeting at the bar where they all met, two bars they went to, they were texting back and forth, her and Jan O'Keefe, and they were arguing. She was upset of the way that he's been treating her, she said. So it was a whole day of texting, and Jan O'Keefe was trying to say, do whatever you want. You don't have to come, but I'm going out. If you come, come. And then she shows up at the bar. Why did she show up at the bar that night after having all these back and forth text messages where they were fighting? And then you go back after you drop him off and you say, I saw him going into the house. I did not see him go into the house. Which door did he go into the house? This door, but I didn't see him, but I saw him. Just the contradictions. There's a lot of contradictions. Why not say I don't remember? Why not say I don't remember? I don't know. It's so clear to me. It's so clear to me. I think because I've been teaching acting for such a long time, and I'm learning so much about human psychology transformed into human behavior, trying to figure out the characters when we're doing a play or a movie. And there's so much that we have to find out from trying to understand what's being said between the lines, the subtext, not just from what the script is giving us. I think Hank Brennan is the case of Hank Brennan, the case of the Commonwealth, is much more rational. There's no comparison to the defense's case. I know it's a general comment, but that's what it is.
The scientific data is substantial. Telestream data, Apple Healthcare data, battery temperature data. And again, Ms. Reed's statements herself about clipping, hitting. The evidence of a collision in this case is overwhelming.
And now, because of Karen Reed talking so much and giving her comments and changing stories, what Hank Brennan, is doing is using the same words that she used in her statements, in her interviews. That's very powerful. And that's why I say Hank Brennan is a really great lawyer. He's a genius, because he could have used other words than what she had explained that she thought could have happened. But no, he's going precisely to the same wording, clipping, because she says that. And then he plays the clip. I mean, this is really powerful. This is like storytelling in a way that I've never seen it done in a courtroom. I watched a couple of trials before. The trial, I don't know if you guys saw the trial of, I think it was called the Black Swan, Ashley Benefield. When she allegedly, she was found guilty, so it's not allegedly, but she was found guilty for shooting her boyfriend, husband at that time. And I remember watching most of the channels that I'm still watching now, and those people who are on the side of Karen Reed, most of these channels were also on the side of Ashley Benefield, because her defense and her attorney's defense strategy was that she did it. Yes, she shot him, but she did it in self-defense. And I was watching her when she decided to come and testify, and her behavior, again, from an acting perspective, was not credible. She was trying to emote. She was trying to put on tears that were not there. Tears, even if they are real for actors and they come and you see them as the physical drops, they still have to come from a place of truth, from the actor's point of view. If you fake them, the audience is not going to know, oh, she's faking those tears, but they're going to feel that they're not coming from something that's truthful. And that's how I felt when I saw her testify. Her body movements were forced. She was trying to reenact, but she couldn't do it in a truthful way because She was lying. She was not credible. So I was making some comments about her, saying I don't believe her testimony. Majority of the creators on the other channels and the comments on those channels were completely seeing the opposite of what I was seeing. But didn't you see her tears? She had real tears. Yes, we can produce real tears, but those tears have to be triggered by something that is truthful in order for me, at least, to believe the testimony. And I didn't believe her. And the jurors, did not believe her either. And they found her guilty. I mean, I don't know why it's so hard for people to observe and to analyze and feel these things. To me, they just come naturally. I don't know if they come naturally because I've been doing acting for a long time, teaching acting, I mean. I don't know. But that's smart what he's doing. He's using her wording, clipping. Maybe I have clipped him? Could I have hit him? And another thing that she says in one of the interviews, and maybe he was trying to chase me. He was probably trying to get me to go back, because that's what she wanted all along. She wanted to be with him. She even called him husband. They were not married. When in the morning she went back with Carrie and Jen McCabe, and she jumped out of the car and knew exactly where to go without seeing him, because she knew exactly where she had dropped him off. So she went there, and that's where his body was found. But for her to say, I maybe he would have chased me down, because that's what she wanted. She didn't want to hear what probably happened, which was he broke up with her. From her, some of her, she didn't say that he broke up with her, but she did say they had a fight. She wanted him to apologize, and she wanted him to say, I only want to be with you. Why would I not want to be with you? You're the most amazing woman. You're the most amazing professor. Because she is. She's a successful. She was a success. Can't even speak.
It is a public way. Lieutenant Gallagher told us about Fairview as being a public way. And so as to the operating under the influence of alcohol, manslaughter, the conduct of driving in that forward and backing maneuver after being intoxicated meets clearly the standard for OUI manslaughter. Regarding second-degree murder, as highlighted in my opening statement, the defendant engaged in intentional conduct. That was her maneuver of driving forward, stopping, and then driving back to Mr. O'Keefe on January 29, 2022. Under the conditions at night after being intoxicated, that conduct was intentional, and any reasonable person could find that her conduct that night created a plain and strong likelihood of death.
He's saying any reasonable person. You got to think reasonably. You got to think rationally. You can't just say, you can't come up with a story that is not within this world, such as the defense's story. You can't. It just doesn't make sense that so many people would conspire to frame her. It's not possible to do, because so many pieces would have to come together. The investigation was bad. Yes, the investigation was bad, but everything is not perfect. And Proctor was fired due to his wrongdoing, but it had nothing to do with conspiracy theory of framing Karen Reed. It had to do with his personal behavior. And another thing that I wanted to say about that, everybody's talking about the horrible words at the address of the defendant, Karen Reed, and they were horrible by Proctor, by Mike, what's his name? Michael Proctor, I think. But what about her words that she left on the voice messages to Mr. John O'Keefe? What about her calling him a pervert while she was at his home next to his niece. What about those texts? You're a pervert? Why is he a pervert? You could have said, you've done me wrong, you're doing this, you don't want to be with me anymore. Why are you treating me this way? You're a pervert? Think of the word pervert. That's like more powerful than just what she was going through with him. Why did she say that? Those are okay. So when a woman says those things about another person, those are okay. But then Proctor is okay. He said horrible things. Yes, he did. And made comments about Karen Reed that he shouldn't have. And he apologized for that in the first trial. But they never found him to be a conspirator in the framing of Karen Reed. He wasn't fired for that. He was fired for his bad behavior. But Karen Reed was saying horrific things about John O'Keefe, and she was saying them to him on the phone as she left them, when she was probably starting to have a more clear of picture of the situation, where at first she probably thought that she just scared him when she backed up, and then as she was driving, when she started calling him, she probably thought, why, oh my God, could it have been more? And then as the time passed that morning, he wasn't showing up. So she probably thought, oh my God, that could have been worse. And she was leaving those messages. Why would you leave those messages? Everybody says from her side that she left those messages on his voice. That proves her innocence. Because why would anybody leave those messages to somebody if they knew that they had done something to them? Because the brain doesn't work from black to white. There's all the gray in between. That's how the brain works. So she probably started to realize that she could have done something worse than what she thought it was in the beginning. And out of fear, she was like, oh my God, where are you? Where are you coming? She was hoping that all of those things that she was saying about him would get to him, because that would have meant that she did not hit him as hard as we then find out that she hit him. Allegedly. Rationally. Just the fact, going back, I don't know if anybody's talking as much about the fact that she decided to go back to his house rather than her house. If I'm having a fight with somebody and I decide, I change my mind, I don't want to go to the party that I'm actually driving to with that person that I'm with, and I'm having a fight, I'm going to go to my house. I'm not going to go to his house.
There is no predicate of intending to kill or even intending to hit. There is clearly a plain and strong likelihood of death driving a 6,000-pound SUV forward and then back. In addition to state of mind, again, the defendant tells us herself. Through firefighter Becker, they're arguing, they're upset. We see the text messages, evidence of attempted breakup, and we hear the words of Karen Reed when she leaves numerous voicemails that night, and you can hear her voice. There are statements, I do not want to go through a summary of all of them, but statements from the defendant herself where she acknowledges an injury to Mr. O'Keefe.
Even the posture that Hank Brennan has is very open. His hands are not crossed like Alan Jackson's hands were when he spoke before. I think Alan Jackson, I did a little bit in my previous video. I'm still trying to figure this thing out, how to do streaming and share screen, and I don't even know if I'm doing it now, but I'm just learning, as we are all learning, because if we think we know everything, then we know nothing. He's very open. He's very relaxed in his body. He's taking pauses. He's looking up when he needs to look up. He's looking down. And I know there are no jurors right now in the court. This is before the jurors came in. But just in the way that he's presenting this in front of the judge, because the defense was wanting for the judge to not go ahead with the trial. They're trying to say that Commonwealth does not have enough proof for the charges that they're putting on Karen Reed. So this is kind of a protocol, I believe. That's what the lawyers are saying on the other YouTube channels. When the Commonwealth rests, just the way that he's kind of standing there, the relaxation is in his face, the relaxation is in his body, therefore in the mind. I feel that with Alan Jackson in this trial, he's much more tense. He's trying so much harder to prove in comparison to the first trial, where I thought he was amazing.
Keith, she's the last one with him, where to find him, and her hypothesis is about hitting and clipping him. As to leaving the scene, again, the defendant tells us that when she leaves, he doesn't look mortally wounded. She leaves him, makes dozens and dozens of calls.
Again, hitting and clipping, using her wording. And then he goes back to saying, the defendant tells us she didn't think she left him mortally wounded. That's all her interviews. That's all her testimony, in a way, that she did for the documentary. I don't know I don't remember all of it, but I've seen the episodes of the documentary on ID. I think now it's on Amazon Prime. And it was so strange to me to watch how much she was enjoying the spotlight. Karen Reed, she was in a car with all of her defense attorneys in one of the scenes, and she had gotten a call about doing the cover of a magazine, Vanity Fair or something. I don't even know exactly. This is just from my remembering. I don't even know if I'm 100% correct, but she was so into it. And the way that her hair is always like blow dried, and the way that she's dressed with all the expensive suits, and they go out, from what I'm hearing, to expensive restaurants, and the supporters are like, here, we keep coming, we're going to support your lifestyle. Of course, who doesn't want that? I would want to have people send me money so I can go to expensive restaurants and buy me suits of thousands of dollars. Of course, she's going to love that. But to be in the middle of a trial and to still be able to comport yourself that way is just a little bit too much for me. What does that say about a character like that? If I were to read her as a character in a play, what would be some of her qualities? What would be some of her flaws? That tells a lot. Human behavior outside of the courtroom tells a lot about her behavior in a relationship with Officer John O'Keefe, and her behavior now when she's out of court, surrounded by all these men, defense lawyers who are all believing in her. She's part of her defense as if she was a lawyer herself, which is great. She's working, she's fighting for her life. I understand that. But there are so many contradictions in the way that she's comporting herself. It's kind of it hits you in the face when you're looking at the court, when you're watching it on the screen, and you see Karen's parents and her supporters, friends on behind them, and then you see Officer John O'Keefe's family, to see the difference between the way they're dressed. Just in the way they're dressed, there's modesty, there's a different side to the family of John O'Keefe. And then you see Karen Reed's family and friends, they're all made up, they're all done, hair perfect, clothing, brand names, and all of that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just admitting that I'm observing that huge difference between them.
But never goes back to help him and leaves him to die. And we heard from Dr. Wolf about the life-saving procedures that could have been initiated. The chance of survival was never given to John O'Keefe. All those facts suffice under Lattimore.
It's so sad when you think about the whole thing. It's not even I mean, it's fascinating to watch because we're watching it, but we're from the outside watching in. But it's so sad for all the people involved in this. For Karen Reed, it's sad for John O'Keefe and his family and loved ones, and it's just such a sad situation. And I just wish that people on both sides would be able to keep their opinions, and we have them as spectators because that's what we are, but not be mean to one another in the comments. Why do we have to be so mean to one another? The jurors are going to be the ones to decide this case, so it's not going to have to do with our comment. We can only learn from watching it and be better for it, hopefully, at the end.
Light most favorable to the government, that a reasonable fact finder would find beyond a reasonable doubt, or could find beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element of each and every one of these charges.
All right, thank you. So the motion is denied as to all three of them. On the other topic that we were discussing at sidebar, I don't need to hear argument on that right now, Ms. Giannetti. I'd prefer to get started. I would like you and Mr. Brennan to talk to see about proposal. So are we ready to bring the jury in? I did not ask you at sidebar. Are you ready for this witness, Mr. Brennan?
I'm ready.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
all right, so we'll bring the jury in. That will take 5 minutes, Paul. All right, so we'll take the recess.
All right, please.
I hope this was recorded. I don't even know if I was live or not because, like I said, I'm still trying to figure this out. Oh my God, this background looks horrible. I just find that very curious. I just find it very curious to read the comments of the supporters of Karen Reed, and there's nothing wrong to be her supporter. You understand what you want to understand from watching this, but to see people not being able to acknowledge or admit that Hank Brennan is a genius lawyer. If you do not observe the presentation skills, if you do not observe the way that he's been able to tell the story, his case to be extraordinary, and to make it so clear and put all the pieces together to create a rational understanding for those jurors of what happened. If you cannot see that, there are people who are saying, oh, I don't understand, he's so insufferable, he's not a good, he's all over the place. We're all watching the same thing, and we're all seeing different things. I think that's what fascinates me about this. I think he's a genius. I think that now the defense lawyers have met their match. In the first trial, I think they did not have Lally. This is nothing personally against Mr. Lally, but now it's equal. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. As if I know that this is going to be working. I don't. Thank you so much. Kisses. Have a great Sunday.